Hello American campuses A through Z. There have been self-valued roles measured and maintained collusion slash S against themselves and others not realizing, replacing what our founders, plural, communicated for us to understand them as. And as James Madison, as they referred to themselves, plural, as James Madison, the individual person. And then they went and got George Washington, counter-extorted and agreeing to help them, or just agreeing to help them, counter-extort the rest of the founders and the rest of the presidents. I mean, the rest of the presidents, not the rest of the founders. The rest of, therefore, founders too. But the founders that were agreed were Native American too. Nature shows us this. President slash chief shows us this. How they declassified, how and why they did not have free speech shows us this. How and why they have other pretended taught so that could be pretended debatable and gotten away with shows us this. How we have black pupils, whites of eyes, it shows us this. Foxct Connecticut News, for example, they have a whole bunch of intelligence families next to them, intercities involved, like people with the name Mendez, who have collusions with a whole bunch of other police that attach me and fake conversations with them more than all at the Wethersfield police station, anywhere else too. Like they fake conversations with me as a kid, and then as an adult too, with the Mendez, one of the Mendez brothers, but both of them, I think they're brothers, and they have roles like with intercities, with New Britain Superior Court, with some sexual medical offenders of kids, and their roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. On a mass scale, they use the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, and to family members. But see, former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, he's involved with wire crime methods, with names at Foxct Connecticut News, but all news locations. Forgiveness is so we could speak on those predicate acts without having our words changed and our identity stolen. These are also with collusions with WFSB and with Connecticut's courts that were personally and professionally involved with predicate acts with the F.B.I and with the co-defendants and the family members of Robert Luskin, involved with military breach, foreign and domestic military leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context. And since a bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University have roles with UConn, intelligence and military too, increasingly with people with the World Trade Center in New York City, involved also increasingly people tied to two speech class teachers I had, never had a personal conversation with them. Their roles with planting evidences with teachers and kids and putting identity theft frauds, fake things, other people doing it for them too. And they're keeping sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase, as identity theft fraud slanders roles, and fake motivations for it, screening, because they need to screen their roles being haven't been criminally foreign influenced. Nature, the breaching method knew. The breaching method had been sustained since before religious messengers. It knew that nature was going to demonstrate everyone rolls with the breaching method. Everyone rolls criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions or sensing the body trying to counter that, including if that body is a majority of people, including if that body is a whole country together. And any grouping of countries too, that it adapts to that. Any grouping of countries that tries to counter with this cause kept and keeps. In other words, while their locations, areas, and states, syntax, styles, needs, nature, it's either the side of the rioters as criminals, or the people, because the inter-brnach at the same time, the difference of them or the intelligence, it's not just inter-brnach. And at the same time, they have a whole bunch of different countries, like with their family members too, the kids of them and the adults of them. They already breaching method showed them they use words like adult and kid in ways they have to hide. Also has collusions with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, with names also involved interstates and with triages interstates, where like the mental health databases, no one's looking in those databases. They're forging names. They're switching names. They're charging. They're charging Social Security. They have people with they have child abusers, leaders of kids, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, involved with the same schools with the family members, extent direct of judges, prosecutors, and victims advocates involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, increasingly as their collusion slash S with their very natures as criminalizations natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, and or negative names treatments used remotely. Forgiveness is because we have to discern where there are guilt. There is shared guilt with the people committing crimes, and also with a breaching method. In other words, and we don't have the right to assemble. The breaching method measures and maintains. That's screened. That obfuscated from our discernment. The breaching method employed the syntax and the names and natures behind it with the Patriot Act as collusion slash S, shown they needed to hide live progressions, all kinds of organized crimes with the World Trade Center and since, including the positions of lawyers of victims of the World Trade Center attack, involved with the agencies like former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, has rules with people interstates. To an extent he doesn't know, because they are used and were used remotely roles with other methods of predicate acts, other methods and natures of falsified police reports, racketeering, worse than war crimes with evidences, with the branches of government individually grouped and together, time collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones when they're not even in those cases. All this is recorded and discernible. But it's going to show sick things in people with the state corrections office and judicial branch offices, people with the campuses of Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, including a prison campus there, involved with all kinds of medical and sexual crimes with their patients before they are caught, and they're forced patients and criminals. They have roles with a principal child abuser and people with body dumping spots, including the reported serial killer associated with one of the body dumping spots. Other body dumping spots and other killers and murders were all recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, even on Facebook. The intelligence community, sometimes it's Facebook, is the one with criminally foreign influence predicate acts roles, wrongdoing roles. Sometimes it's the court's names. The British Superior Court has personally and professionally someone named Celeste Wells. It looked like her in an advertisement on the television. I never had a class with her. She only made one quote. Well, no, she's not, or maybe two. She tried to make a fake exception and make it look like other, with people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people involved with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, sins, falsified police reports, sequence shifts, inter-branch switching names, predicate acts with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, first forced years apart, increasingly people all along Route 3 and its conjunctions to that, and all along Route 175 from founding locations in Old Wethersfield, Connecticut. But these are also people within the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, involved also with rape threats, with a whole bunch of people tied to former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members that were all recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various courts and their family members, involved with the foreign and domestic, military, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and abusers of children, abusers of elderly homes. At the same time, veterans' homes, demonstrably. They have sick roles with drugs and medicines crimes. And then they have to hide that, so they put fake transcripts, fake ties with people, fake natures of ties to people. Hartford Hospital has a bunch of people involved with a Brendan Leahy, more than one Brendan Leahy, apparently, and women in their family with the name Leahy. Involved also with one's named Lombardo that I've never seen on my street. I don't know where they live. They're involved with people with the name Colo at 80 Carrollton Drive, and people on the parallel streets and conjunctions to them that are increasingly involved with them since before they moved to the house. involved with retired police chiefs, now 2 of them, involved also with their intimate ties and families, involved with police forging and switching names, refusing to get on paper, attaching me to fake conversations with themselves as a kid, now as an adult too, as ones further involved intercities with child abusers and spots like next to St. Anthony's Church. There are a bunch of police, like ones with and police forms, like ones with the name. Former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, his co-defendant Thaddeus Grabowski is involved there with Allison Mulcahy, whose repeated involvements with Mike Domain. Adam Domain had roles with intelligence with that corner, also with where he yelled out sexual things to make it look like he knew me at a party about that girl, Allison Mulcahy. There was a tent in the backyard of a Rick Sanfaglione, and they're planting evidences with judges and prosecutors and victims advocates involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic military, sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never saw a Leahy family except for like one time or a couple times they walked by me when I was in high school, and someone told me their name. I didn't even see who told me that. This is not increasingly done as victims, some ways as predators. The differences of the guilt is our side. Excuse me. Countries A through Z are supposed to understand how and why internationally monitored conversations where criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions raw, systems, tactical terror from how we are human species body of individual bodies. They're hiding that, including their roles with doing it by bringing in pretend things about sexual, in other words. Meanwhile, they're putting fake things in the databases with the principal upskirt nature. Further with F.B.I on Facebook, and further you're gonna see it on the map because they won't identify themselves legitimately inter-brnach, and they have people involved with violence now too. At the same time, other natures of organized crimes at the same time, and they have wire crime acts and methods with the campuses, and they were more involved then and now, and with the sources of the news. WTNH has F.B.I and their sources involved with the corners of streets all along Route 175 and its conjunctions, and with people at corners of that street who also have collusions with them, with quarters along that street, also have collusions at the campuses and next to them, a corner next to it, planting evidences, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, with people involved with digital crimes with the kids, medical and sexual. They're putting fake things in databases as people personally and professionally with judges and prosecutors who've been doing that with a whole bunch of different countries involved, overt criminal enterprise, private ones at the same time, body dumping spots. In other words, if you want, you have to pick one thing to pay attention to predicate acts, get them on paper. I mean, they're playing judges Napolitano's sense and sensibilities. They hid this from him, not legitimately. And they're leaking their roles with Russians, Ukraine, other countries involved with Judge Napolitano topics and more are involved with this. Next to Foxct Connecticut News with a bunch of names, intercities, not off the campuses, putting fake things in. Collusions, acting tied to people who put predicate acts with things in databases so they could get away with pretending to know it. And using all exceptions, criminally foreign nipples, they can't afford to have it discerned on paper. Black pupils. Yeah.